Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation. We are very glad to have this presentation today. This is in honor of Native American Heritage Month. It is titled A Native Youth Roundtable, Life Transitions in Higher Education, Providing Youth and Pathways to Success in the Higher Education System. It is provided to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Child Trauma TSA Category 3 Center, the Native American Alaska Native Leadership Academy, and the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center School Mental Health Program. Next slide, please.
Yeah, welcome everyone today. The National American Indian and Alaska Native Childhood Trauma Treatment Service and Adoption Center is supported by a grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And the content of this event is the creation of the presenters, and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, IHHS, or the American Indian and Alaska Native NCTSN.
So, hi everyone, this is our land acknowledgement. This is done by 3 of our previous coworkers, and so I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes to just read it over before we get started. Thank you all for taking the time to read through that. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Teresa to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Brewington. I am Coherent enrolled and a Lumbee descendant. I live here on the Meskwaki settlement with my husband and my adopted granddaughter. I hold a master's in educational leadership and a master's in business administration, and I'm very happy to be here today. And I am going to hand it over to my lead, I think, Liz.
Hand it over to Monica.
Monica, my apologies, Monica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Dreyer Rossi. I am a research manager, and I'm working on the American Indian and Alaska Native Leadership Academy, and also the Tribal College and University Initiative at the University of Iowa College of Public Health. I have all my education from Norway, from the Arctic University of Norway, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Liz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. I'm the program coordinator for the National American Indian Alaska Native Childhood Trauma TSA Category 2. I work exclusively with Teresa. I have a master's degree in public health and community and behavioral health, and I'm also a certified health education specialist. I am also going to be introducing our 3 amazing GRAs. So Eleanor, Aaron, and Taylor are all in the school counseling program at the University of Iowa. I believe Taylor is in the mental health counseling program, and so Eleanor works with us on the trauma grant, Aaron works on the K-12 grant, and Taylor works on the Leadership Academy Behavioral Health Education Program grants. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Teresa.
So Native Youth in Higher Education, the reason why we wanted to come here today is because we know that Native youth, when they graduate from university, from K through 12, and they go on to college and universities, they're not always successful. Unfortunately, dropout rates are very high among American Indian and Alaska Native youth, especially in the first year. Some of the statistics say about 30% of compared to their white counterparts. Other stats say actually up to 50%. So we really wanted to bring attention to this about what our universities can do to make our Native youth that are attending college to be successful so that they can graduate. So that is why we're here today. We want to hear actually from our college students. So just a couple of statistics. American Indian children are less likely to have family members that attended college. A 2007 study showed that 21% of American Indian children live in a household with the parents with a bachelor's degree or higher compared to 52% of white households. Completion rates are lower. 41 of first-time full-time American Indian students at a four-year institution graduate within 6 years, compared to 63% of other students. And those ratios are actually higher in some statistics. Persistent rates are lower. Native students have the 60% persistent rates from their first to second year of college. It is the lowest of all populations studied and the smallest sample size. However, we know that our Native youth are more than statistics. We know that our Native youth are ready and able to attend college and to be successful. So today's program is all about hearing from our Native youth and what universities can do to help them be more successful. Next slide. And I'm going to leave it over to Keely to go ahead and introduce herself. Thank you, Keely.
Thank you, Teresa. Ho Jagimawakwa Netishis, Keely Driscoll Netishis and Mokumani Swan, Nemawewis, Nedakan Nish Wabidug Nish, Netis Baboon. My name is Keely Driscoll. I'm a Squawky with ties to the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska, and I'm from Tama, Iowa. Last year, I graduated with my BA in International Studies, and I also received certificates in Sustainability and Native Studies, Native American and Indigenous Studies from the University of Iowa. I previously had the opportunity to work with the Meskwaki Tribal Corps and also the Native Center for Behavioral Health for 4 years during my undergraduate degree. I got to work with the center, so I'm really happy to have been invited back, and thankful to be here with you all today to speak about my experience in education. And now I am just moved to Arizona from Iowa, and I'm a first-year JD candidate at the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. And I really attribute my ability to continue my education to my mentors and mentee relationships and my support systems. And so during my time here, I'm really trying to pass along those services that have encouraged me to further my education as a fellow for the Marshall Brennan Constitutional Literacy Project, where we just go to a high school here and help students with an interest in law learn more about constitutional law and engage in moot court competitions. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yat she Dorsey Dikin she Kilchin nesle Todich ini Bashchin, Mash Etkapan, the chain shin Dashnella, Kindoklis then Shagan a Nakai Hot na Sha. So hello, good afternoon, guys. I said hello, my family, friends. My name is Dorsey. I am Red House, born for Bitterwater. My maternal grandfather's clan is Zuni Water Edge, and my paternal grandfather's clan is the Salt Clan. So, and then I also said I live here in Toyac, Colorado, but I'm from Mexican Water, Utah. I am Navajo with a tiny bit of Paiute, so I have Paiute ties, or as we say here in Ute country, we say Banduch. So I am Navajo. I go to Fort Lewis College studying environmental studies. Mainly I want to focus in biology, but right now, as of what I'm doing, I still go to school at Fort Lewis College. I took off this term to do an internship here with the Ute tribe. And so I work here at the Ute tribe as a biologist intern, working in restoration, working in grant outlining, working in whatever it be in the environmental world here. So I'm part of the environmental department here at the Ute tribe. So yeah, guys, I look forward to speaking with you all and, you know, sharing my share of school and how it's going so far. So yeah, the way up.
Thank you for that. Ashira Shitzak, Nati, Kiriri, Sisari, Hahemi, Yoin, Pindiri, City, Wiku, Kirigiris, Koiku, Garawacho, Tetse. Hello, everyone. It's good to be here with you all today. My name is Isabel Friday. I'm 18 years old. I'm Wichita from the Waco Band, Kiowa, Cattle, and Ugalakota. I'm a current student at the University of Denver, majoring in physiology and health and disease. And thank you all for being here today.
Kioneda, Deonde son Saint Dogima Boy Jonah post on. Hi everyone, it's wonderful to see you all here over Zoom. I am a member of the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma. I am a current student at the University of Oklahoma, majoring in computer science and Native American studies. Nice to see all your faces in your Zoom icons. I'm Jonah.
Thank you all so much for introducing yourself. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself, which is very Zoom of me. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us and for listening. So with that, we have our contact information and then also the resources from the information and statistics we shared. So then we're going to get into the questions. So to start, we would like to ask the panelists, what or who inspired you to go to college? And we're starting with Dorsey.
Yeah, so what inspired me to go to school? I always ask myself this question because I think like when you go out through life, you always change with what you want to do and where you want to go. A little brief backstory. I actually started when I was in elementary. I have a blue collar family, being Navajo. We're very blue collar people, I guess you could say, or that's across Indian Nation or across in Native America. My uncle was a welder, my other uncle was a framer, my other uncle was iron worker. And I wanted to be that for the longest time. And then briefly, my uncles are very much into their cultural ways. They practice, hoshona, which is beauty way ceremonies, and they practice, intertribal ceremonies, whether that be peyote, whether that be, even celebrations and stuff like that. And they always talked about the instance of Mother Earth. They always talked about that. And I always reflect back on that. And, Native American people have always had a strong connection to Mother Earth. So being able to take a tie back and being able to say, how can I do what I love, but also be pro indigenous, but also at the same time give my thanks back to Mother Earth. So with that, that inspired me to go to school, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the time, a lot of the work that I want to do, we have to have a degree to be able to speak on what we know best is the land. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the times we can't be experts in school, whether that be, speaking on indigenous culture without that degree. I had an instance where I spoke somewhere and there was a professor and he asked me, how are you certified to speak on, such things? And then I said, I'm Native American, I'm Navajo. I feel best suited for it. He made me realize, I don't have that degree to, teach it, but at least I speak about it, and it's a known topic, I guess you could say. So from there on, in politics and Navajo politics, which we just had recently, our election of our president, you very much look at the instance of, these guys have such big backgrounds, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, going on to their, doctor's degrees. And that, that encouraged me to go to school, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the time, us as Native Americans might go to a big school and we might have a sense of, culture shock. And I didn't have to experience that, but I did go to a school that was, there was natives, but there was also non-indigenous students there. So, I was already introduced to that environment from an early age. So being able to, tell myself I want to go to school and being inspired by, leaders in Navajo country, I guess you could say, delegates, president, vice president, and those guys were really laid the forefront for me to be able to go to school and being able to, have that encouragement in myself. In Navajo culture, they always talk about, my grandma used to sing this song and it was like, oh, my son, go and climb the ladder. And she sung it in Navajo. So hearing that, they talk about that, being able to go to school and come back and help your people. And that's the biggest thing I wanted to do. That was the biggest, thing in my head that I wanted to do, which was either to go help the people or go help indigenous peoples across the US. You know what I mean? So having that in mind and being able to, have education be a part of my culture is such a big thing. We have the Chief Manuelito where he goes and he talks about the time when he went up to Washington. He said, the only way we're going to be able to keep up in this up and coming world is by, in an instance, I don't want to say it, but beating them at their own game, being able to learn the education, being able to learn the things that are going on to be able to help your people. Because being able to push, culture and diversity in the classroom was such a big thing for me. You know, we had a Native American segment in history class, and I did like an activism thing, I guess you could say, which was, my teacher was like, Dorsey, you're a straight student, but what's going on? You're failing this section of Native American history. And I was like, that's written by, the victors, but us Native Americans, we have different stories of how that actually was won, that battle was won, how things actually went. So being able to learn that and being able to, tell the history right, I guess you could say, or being able to, tell the science, Native Americans have always known the science is just science is slow, I guess you could say. I heard this by a good friend of mine, and he told me, science is slow. So being able to, have our practices and being able to prove them in the scientific world that it's a factual knowledge was such a huge thing for me. So I guess it's being able to prove that, Native Americans aren't just another, you know, they're just another creature, as was said, or something else, you know what I mean? So being able to push us out there and being able to let us know that we're known, and we've always known this information. We just can't be proved that it's right, I guess you could say. So that really encouraged me to go to school. And that's why I'm in school right now, to be able to, give back to the land. A lot of the work I do is revegetation, habitat restructure and stuff like that. So I get to be outside where I love it. And, I get to give back to the land, not only in a scientific way, but in a cultural way. So that's what really encouraged me to go back to school, was family and, seeing people like myself up there doing the work themselves. So that's really what pushed me to go to school, I guess you could say. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Dorsey. That was wonderful. All right, we are moving on to Keely. What or who has inspired you to go to college?
I agree with so much that Dorsey said, especially when it comes to the history aspects. History was such a strong thing that I grew up learning. Both my parents, from the time I was young, made it very clear that college was the path that we would all take. And even though, my dad wasn't particularly fond of college, he's just like he has natural interests and like curiosities and things. And he does his own research about things in a non-traditional educational setting. And then my mom actually was getting her master's when I was a kid. And so I would go to class with her at the University of Iowa, and I would sit on the ground next to her desk. And that was such a big part of my childhood, because she was also part of the Native American Student Association. And just having that community, even away from home, like in a university setting, made it inspiring for me to want to fill those shoes one day that my mom was taking, and getting her education, and the things that she was able to learn by doing her own research in a university setting. As Dorsey said, a lot of times in her experience, and even in my experience in the classroom, taking Native American Indigenous Studies classes, there can be struggles and there can be differences in the way they teach from what we know as people. And so being able to have that knowledge is so important to me. And having the privilege of growing up with my mother, who was able to teach me these things, just like car conversations or just when we're at home, really sparked an interest. And I knew from a young age that I was a lifelong learner, and if I could go to school forever, I would. I just love reading and writing and trying to form new ideas. And so definitely my family was one of the biggest inspirations, having younger siblings and wanting to inspire them to do what they love to do in life, and to just learn. And then finally also working at the tribal court, and with all of the staff and judges and clerks of court there, they were so inspiring in seeing the differences in the ways that cases are handled within our own communities compared to in the state or federal courts. And just wanting to be able to strengthen the legal profession within our communities as well, I think was a big driver in me going into higher education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keely. All right, Jonah, are you ready? What or who has inspired you to go to college?
So for me, I feel like the biggest like inspiration for like me attending like college or any higher education is definitely my mother. I feel like from a young age, it was always I don't know, like she always said like college is the way to go. And like, I don't know, I've always been a very like attentive, like I love to learn and like just learning new things. And I want to thank my mom for like instilling that in me. Because growing up, I would see her raise me and my siblings, and she was out there doing getting her master's, and then eventually she got recently just got her doctorate, and I was so proud of her, and I think that she is like a big reason for me like to attend college in the first place, because I just want to like make her proud, and because of all the challenges and obstacles that she has gone through, I know that if she could do it, that I could do it. And I don't really see like my mom is like the biggest like very inspiring to me, and like the biggest reason I went to college, along with like my grandmas and grandpas who were like, you got this, you can do it for the next generation. Like I just want to be able to show that natives can and can and will succeed in like higher education places. And I definitely have to thank my mom for that, along with many other people, but definitely my mom.
There appears to be family is a good inspiration. Thank you so much, Shoshona. All right, Isabella, what or who inspired you to go to college?
Just like everyone said, my family and my parents are a big inspiration to me. My family were always really like supportive of me when I was younger, and they always told me that you should go to college and get your degree. And I really want to thank my mom for the inspiration, because she basically kind of said college wasn't an option, but it really pushed me to get where I am to today. And she said, you need to get as many degrees as possible. So that's really inspiring to me. And I also like to break the stereotypes that we are put under on how we don't get past high school, or we don't even graduate high school. I think that's a big that's really important to me. And for a while it was a sport, because I was a former gymnast. And I actually had a great opportunity to attend a different school for a sport, but I chose education over that because I thought about my family and my mom and my dad, and always wanted me to get my education. So I put aside sports and focused on school. So yeah, those are really big inspirations to me.
Thank you so much. I'll hand it over to Monica.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It sounds like you all have had some very important role models in your own life that has inspired you to take the path of higher education, and that's certainly for very many a way to claim your seat at the table and make an impact in areas that you are passionate about. So, but our next question is, what made you decide your college was the right place for you? And the question goes to Keely first.
Well, like I mentioned before, when I was deciding on a university, I applied to a whole bunch. I think that's the biggest thing that, like, best piece of advice that I got was to just apply. Even when like going to higher education after university, just like there were so many points where I was like, oh, I'm not going to get in, or there's no use in applying, but just filling out the applications, and it's okay to get a no or whatever, but just applying everywhere, and then having the option to like choose between colleges. And ultimately I decided to go to the University of Iowa, even though I had really great offers from other schools, mostly because it was really close to home and I'm really close with my family. So that I knew was going to be really important to me. And it was being able to go home on the weekends, and going from like a very small school to a huge university with thousands of students was a lot different. But luckily, having grown up in that space and at the university made it a lot easier for me. I was able to be a part of the Native Student Association like my mom was, and it was just great to really see, like, as a child, like that was what I wanted to do, and I finally got there. And there I met a lot of amazing mentors. And one of the things that I really struggled with was there weren't a lot of Indigenous professors at the university. So when I was deciding that I wanted to go into federal Indian law, I was trying to choose a law school that really had the representation there, really had Native students there that I would be able to, you know, study with and learn from. And so I applied to a lot of different law schools as well. And ultimately I decided, like, after having the opportunity to live close to home, I was ready to, like, take that leap and live further away, just to be able to really be at the heart of where, like, the study of federal Indian law is taking place out here in Arizona. So I'm really thankful to have gotten to go here. And when I was choosing between schools in Arizona, what really made the difference for me was when I went and visited, and there was just such a feel for community, having a mentor, someone to reach out, and that was really supportive of me, was the difference. So I think that's really important when, as a student moving really far away from home, if that's not something that you're comfortable with, that's not something I was comfortable with, it has really made a difference so far that I've been out here.
Thank you so much, Keely. Hoshona, what made you decide your college was the right place for you?
So initially, when I first got out of high school, the first college I went to was Rice University, and I was there for a full academic year. But then I decided to transfer to the University of Oklahoma. First off, because the Native population there wasn't very big. I was probably one of the only Native on campus, and it was just very isolating, very lonely, and I had no, like, ties to my culture or my family because they were, like, off and away. It was just very, I guess I said it, lonely. And so when I decided, my first initial thought of, like, Rice probably isn't the best fit for me, I went to where I grew up, the University of Oklahoma, OU. And I was like, okay, I know this place. I know it's connected to my family. I know, like, there's a decent Native population there. And I was just going through pros and cons in, like, my head. Family, like, is it close to home? Can I, like, be myself and not be afraid to be like, yes, I'm Native, or with, like, no backlash or anything? Am I able to, like, be connected to my culture? Is there, like, Native faculty and, like, Native programs there? And after, like, going through, like, a big list of pros and cons, I decided that, yeah, OU is definitely, like, the better fit for me. And I don't really want to try to, like, make myself fit into this, I want to say, like, a box of, like, almost doing non-Native stuff for a Native person. I love Rice University, like, the experience there, because growing up, I went to a high school surrounded, like, by Natives. We were surrounded by 7 different tribes. And so going to, like, a university where there was, like, no Natives was a complete, like, culture shock for me. And I was definitely a very new experience. And even though it was, like, tough going through it, I'm very glad that I've had that, because now I know what I need in my life, which is definitely, I need to be close to my family, and I definitely need to be connected to my culture and those with, like, similar experiences with me. So I chose the University of Oklahoma because of those different things. And I'm very glad I did, because here I made such good connections to other Native students, to Native advisors and faculty. And I just found myself happy here, and it was, like, the better decision for me. I know some people are like, would have wanted me to stay at Rice or like do this or that. But like for me, I just needed to make a decision. What felt good for me is choosing this school. And I love the university, and I'm glad I made the decision. So yeah.
Thank you, Hoshona. It sounds like it was important both to you and Keely, for her, at least in the first place, to stay close to home. So Isabella, how about you? What made you decide your college?
Like I said before, I originally had an offer on a sports scholarship to Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I think a week later, because I had applied to the University of Denver and got in, and then I applied for a Native American student scholarship. And a week later, after I was getting ready to sign with Augustana, I got an email saying that I was offered the DU scholarship. And it turns out it was a full academic scholarship. So that was a huge factor in which school I chose. And I think that was really hard for me at the time, but then getting to visit Denver and the university and seeing how good of a Native community that they have here, I felt really good about my decision. Because they also have Native Student Alliance, which is a really good community, and it made me feel really at home. Because I'm originally from Oklahoma, so I always go to powwows on the weekends and stuff. So being up in Denver, it made me feel like home, having this community up here. And I have some relatives that go to school here, so that was really, it was really good for me. And DU is also a little more private kind of, and it's a smaller institution, so I'm not going to like a huge university where I'm going to be left on my own. There are a lot of resources for Native students and students in general. We have so many like academic advisors, career advisors, like mental health resources, counselors. So DU was a really good fit for me in the end.
Thank you, Isabella. It must have been so difficult to make those choices for you, but you found somewhere that made you feel like home. Dorsey, what made you decide your college was the right place for you?
Yeah, so I don't know. It was really close to home. Like, I don't know, like everybody said, I mean, at least 2 out of 4 have said, it's really close to home. And that's what I really loved. I enjoyed about it. I really wanted to like go far out. I got accepted down to ASU, and I wanted to go there, and my uncle lives there, but I was like, I'm just gonna stay home, as we say in Ute, they say Banakits, or we say in Navajo, peso. So it was really a money thing for me, but it was really close to home. And I knew I had friends that already went to school at Fort Lewis, and they were still there when I got to there. And so it was really being able to connect with people like myself, and being able to connect with other indigenous cultures, which I really got a good sense of, I guess you could say. So when I got there, I enjoyed it. I love it there. I loved it because it was right up in the mountains. Even though I'm a Utah Navajo, as I say, being up in the Colorado hills and the mountains was such a big thing for me. And that was a sense of home, I guess, because in Navajo you have where you're born and then where you're from. And in Navajo, where you're from is such a big deal. But I grew up here in Colorado, so grow up here in Colorado, I just fell in love, and that's home to me now. So being able to stay, I don't know, where home is, being able to have that environment. And I had mentors growing up, which was like my principal, the superintendent of the district. They always talked about, college is easier, if it feels like home to you. And that was such a big thing to me. I got there, I met up with an advisor, and right off the bat, I didn't have a name tag on, and I was walking around campus with a group of students, and they're like, "Hey, are you I don't know your name. What's your name?" And I was like, "I'm Dorsey." They're like, "Hey, what studies you in, bro?" And I'm like, I'm still in high school, bro." And he's like, "Oh, okay. When you get up here, you got IG, man?" And we just, already connected off the bat with students, and being able to, have a connection was such a cool thing. And I was just like, yeah, I think that's where I want to go. And as soon as I got there, me and my brother, I call him my brother, he was my roommate, and we had drum tie. We sat there, and he's very much into his peyote culture ways, and he was like, Dorsey, you know, I want to have drum tie. Can you drum for me? And I was like, yeah, I'll tie it up and we'll have drum tie. And so we sat there, and where campus is over the overlook, you can actually see all of Durango. And we have an overlook over all of Durango. So we sat on the edge, it's a grassy spot, and you know, we were sitting there singing, and I was singing with him, and I was hitting drum for him, and we were sitting there, and pretty soon, you know, cars started slowly just going by us. They were just driving ever so slightly, and they were like, pretty soon this guy came over, and he's like, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? And he had a drum in his hand, and he had his gourd in his other hand. And he's like, hey, can I sit in with you guys? We'll have drum tie. And so pretty soon, you know, we already had like maybe 12 people in a circle having drum tie and singing good tunes. And, you know, it was happening. And we had like spectators, I guess you could say, you know, watching us. And they were like, hey, you guys know there's a club for this? And we were like, no, I didn't know there's a club for this. And they're like, hey, yeah, it's every Thursday, man. You should check it out. So we checked it out. And then, you know, I don't go to Powell, but you know, I have a girlfriend that does go to Powell, and being able to, you know, be involved in that culture too as well, you know, it was such a huge thing for me. It was the aspect of, you know, school, and the aspect of, you know, how everything ties together with culture as well. So that was really a big thing. And the education is so awesome. The instructors are all so down to earth, and you know, I had to talk with my environmental studies, you know, professor, and he was like, Dorsey, you know, what makes you want to do this? And I was like, it probably sounds cheesy, but you know, I'm Native American and I want to give back to the land. I'm pretty sure you've heard that from plenty of other students. He's like, yeah, I've heard that, but what's the reason why? And you know, he always challenged what I was thinking. He always made a cultural connection back to what we were learning. So it was the instructors, and it was our just that first connection when I visited the school was such a cool thing, because I got there, and you know, people were like, what's your name, where are you from? And I started talking to them back, because I'm a very open person, you know. So being able to see that, and the mass amount of cultures that are there. I have I call them Lakota brothers that are up there, you know. I have brothers that are from up north, way down south. And so, you know, being able to be there with them, you know, have drum tie or even sit at drum with them, you know, so that was such a big thing for me. And we all just, I just enjoyed it. And you know, I want to plan on staying there, but you know, transferring sounds kind of nice too, because you know, they don't offer one of the classes that I really want to take. So, but Fort Lewis College, great college. I'm gonna stay there hopefully. But yeah, it was really a sense of culture, class, and being able to mingle with others.
Thank you, Dorsey. I think you all are saying a little bit of the same, staying connected to your professors, to the topics, to your family, to your culture. Thank you all. I'll leave the next question to Liz.
I think you all have somewhat touched on this already, but I would love for you all to elaborate a little bit further of how are you successful in college? And we'll start with Jonah.
So I think I'd like to say I'm successful in college. I'm getting through the days, going to classes, getting my homework done, all that good stuff. But I think it was definitely a challenge during my first year in college, and definitely up until now. I'm trying to navigate just balancing societal, not societal, like social, and then the academics, along with like balancing maybe work that I might have like outside of like work to pay the bills. I think it was definitely just a lot of trial and error for me, at least, because I felt like, especially during my first academic year, that I was definitely kind of navigating alone. So it's definitely like give or take. But I feel like I finally got in the groove of like balancing everything. Although it's here at OU, it's definitely very nice that I have more ties to my culture, because back then I wasn't really leaning back on that, or like falling back on that when I was like going through hard times, especially during like midterm season and final exams. I definitely was not like connected. And so I feel like here I am definitely more like that. And I feel like it's very, very helpful to be like surrounded by those who like have grown up like almost the same as me, same ties to our culture, same strength we see within our families. So I definitely want to say that I'm successful due to like finding that balance that was right for me, and what might be right for me is like not necessarily like gonna work for like everyone. So I definitely, it's a process almost. It's different for everyone, but I like to like thank I feel like the community, definitely my advisors I've had throughout like all of this, definitely talking to them about like academics and just life situations, all of that. Just being not afraid to ask is what definitely got me through like the tough times in college. Definitely not afraid to ask professors any questions, going to office hours and all that. I guess also like having this sort of dedication to like our determination to like finish what like I want to finish college. And so that's like my one drive to like keep me going, to like make my like parents and my grandparents proud, my siblings, it's just, I feel like that's kind of what is keeping me going, keeping me like kind of on top of things. So it's definitely like a give or take. And I would like to say I'm very successful. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. I think Isabella, you are next. So how are you successful in college right now?
Right now I'm still trying to get used to everything since I am a freshman. And I'm on the quarter system. If you guys don't know what the quarter system is, you go to school for 10 weeks, you get a break, and then you have 2 more quarters after that, both 10 weeks with a break. But every Sunday I try to plan out my week. That includes like classes and like outside activities I have to do. I keep a wall calendar for that as well, with like my classes on it. Then on my computer I have like a due dates like Excel file type thing. And then every week I create a to-do list, which includes all my homework for the week and stuff. Which is really important because it's easy to forget. And then I really try to study in between my free time for classes. Like if I don't have a class for a good period of time, I try to study or get some homework done. Because it's very hard to find time once you're done with classes for the day, because by the end of the day, I'm really tired most of the time and I just want to go to bed. I also use the resources like our advisors, the office hours, just to get some extra help. I haven't visited the counselors yet. I probably should. But I do mental health checks and like self-care days. Those are mostly on the weekends. Yeah, that's really important to me, to keep my mental health up, because I don't know if I could survive if my mental health is not up there. So yeah.
Yes, mental health is very important, especially in school. All right, I think we're on to Dorsey. How are you successful in college?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, like they've all had said, being able to keep yourself organized. A lot of the time you have a busy class load and you have a full class load. A lot of the time you get caught up in different work, forget about a class and forget what this was going. I think what helped me though was really, having like-minded people around. You know what I mean? Like I'm a gym rat. I love going to the gym. So a lot of the time, a lot of people who were gym rats with me, I found them that they were in my classes a lot of the time. So a lot of the time it was like, hey, what are you doing? Are you gonna hit legs tonight? Yeah, I'm gonna hit legs. You want to do some study? You studying after that too? So it was being able to, keep it on track. And a lot of the time, like if I forgot an assignment, I'd always be reminded by a peer that was in the gym, which I thought was such a funny thing. Like one day I was doing chest and one of my buddies comes over, he's like, hey, you ready for that test tomorrow, bro? And I was like, what test? And he's like, yeah, that test tomorrow for biology. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. So being able to have like-minded people around and be able to keep yourself organized was such a huge thing for me. And that's really what helped me at the end of the day, was like-minded people, organization. I had the same thing. I had an Excel file that had all my classes on it and what was due by that coming week. And then a lot of it was putting in, even though it was really tedious, was putting a lot of stuff in my calendar of my phone. Like I noticed a lot of time when I had my phone by me and it was like, this needs to be due, this needs to be due, please do this by this day. it was really a huge thing. So being able to work with my phone and being able to work with my peers really helped me at the end of the day staying, successful in college. And it really, what really helped me too at the end of the day was actually being interested in the topic. A lot of the time, if you challenge your professors, they're willing to take the challenge. I told my professor, how does this class tie into my culture? How does this class tie into the work I'm going to do, so on and so forth? And a lot of the time he was like, okay, Dorsey, if you want to give me that challenge, I'm going to give you harder work with different questions. So having that relationship, that one-on-one relationship and that understanding with my professor and what I want to do and where I want to go really helped me at the end of the day. So that's how I stayed successful, I guess you could say, was being interested in the topic, being organized, and having, like-minded peers. So, yeah.
It sounds like a lot of you have a great community that you've started to build. And I think it's going to be interesting, Keely, for you to answer this question, because I can ask, how are you successful in college and how were you successful in college because you have been through undergrad?
Yeah, so I think now I have a lot of different habits that I never picked up in undergrad. I didn't ever really go to office hours in undergrad. My study habits were way different. And one thing I've learned, like in undergrad, I was really interested in the topic and I still am. And that's something that I feel really lucky to be able to learn something that I'm genuinely very interested in. And in undergrad, I picked a major, international studies. Like I didn't pick it for any reason. I just picked it because that's what I wanted to learn about. And it just happened naturally from the classes that I was taking. So I think that what Dorsey said is so important. But also, in contrast to Dorsey, like about the organizational aspect of it, I have just never been like a planner person. I've tried planners. I have a physical planner. I have my phone planner. It just doesn't work for me. So I think that just knowing what works for you is really important. So after like every single class, I open the syllabus and I tab my books with the pages I have to read for the next class. And I do my assignments that way. I always do my homework the day before class, or sometimes if I can get ahead, if I'm like feeling extra motivated one day, I'll try to do it ahead of time. So like as far as study habits, one thing I've learned is you can't force it. If you're like sitting down to study and you just like cannot get through a reading, I've spent 30 minutes on 3 pages or like 2 pages even. And what I found is like taking a gym break or going on a hike or cooking with your friends or whatever you can do to relax. It's going to be more effective than just trying to force yourself to study in that moment. So just giving yourself grace and coming back to it, of course, because you have to do your homework. You have to stay ahead of it. That's the main thing, is do not get behind, because it just gets so difficult if that happens. And then finally, like the one thing that's really kept me on track and helped me to develop better habits is talking to my professors and mentors, and then having, as Dorsey said, having friends that are very good influences. So like my friends and I will go to office hours together, or we'll talk over homework together, and having that discussion and being able to like explain to your friend out loud maybe some of the things that they're understanding, and then them explain to you, really helps solidify that knowledge, rather than just like reading off the page isn't going to help anything, but making sure that as you read, you're asking questions. And I always try to apply it, even if it's not something I'm interested in. I'll just try to apply it to a different circumstance, or find a way to relate to it in some way, so that way I can remember it better.
It's always really helpful when you have friends that are willing to go to office hours with you, definitely. Thank you all for sharing your perspective on how to be successful. And I think it's on to Monica for the next question.
Yes, thank you all. I made notes of everything you said so I can be more efficient at work and also tell my kids how they're going to study when they get to college. Thank you. So the last question, no, it's not the last question, sorry. What resources did you seek out, and what resources were available, if any, for American Indian and Alaska Native students in college? And Isabella, I'll I'll give the question to you first.
Yeah, at DU, since it's a smaller institution, there are a lot more resources for students and get one-on-one time, especially with, like, professors and stuff. So that we have academic advisors, then we get into career advisors, and we even get into major advisors, which is kind of like the same thing for career. But then there are a bunch of different, like, mental health resources, just student resources. Then you obviously have your office hours with your professors. And for Native American students, for DU specifically, you have Native American Student Support Fund, which ensures that we get the full experience of campus, and things like Indigenous Peoples Day, Native American Heritage Month, and their annual PAL they have every year. And it's all supported through DU. And within that, there's an emergency fund for Native students, which helps with, like, traveling emergency trips. And that can include, like, and if you want to study abroad, that's also another great resource here. This emergency fund will help buy your passport, and if you want to travel home for winter break, it'll help buy your luggage, like sometimes your gas money if you're traveling. And I think that's really good. Also, I just think NSA as a whole, Native Student Alliance, is a really great resource for Native American students because it's such a good, loving community. We have a big support team of people who work through DU that help us a lot. And we even had a separate orientation for Native students, which was really helpful because we got to meet some new friends and also get a better idea of what DU looks like. And the last one is a multicultural lounge, which is very helpful for, like, studying and stuff, or if you have any questions. So yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Isabella, for that. And then it's Dorsey next.
Yeah, so at Fort Lewis College, we actually have a Native American Center. I think that's a big thing. You know, if your school offers a Native American Center, you know, don't be scared to go. I was kind of scared to go, I'm not gonna lie. The only reason I went was because that's where the drum time meetings were actually held, and they were like, you know, it's in the NAC building. And I was like, where's that? And they're like, it's under the lunch hall. And I was like, oh. So I went in there, you know, I kind of literally just, it's just like how I always walked into my classes. You know, I kind of go in, I smile, and then I asked them, you know, what do you guys do here? And it was really awesome because I forgot what his name was, but he came through and he walked me through everything that they offer, you know, being able to have a tutor that was, you know, by your side, being able to tell you what's going to happen, you know, student peers, you know, and I can't really remember what other resources, you know, Fort Lewis has and what they did, but I noticed a lot of, you know, I guess the resources that were there was one-on-one tutoring, which was such a huge thing for me. Because a lot of the time, you know, being Native American, you have a sense of, you know, you don't want to ask for help. You never ever want to do that. I don't know why. I've always lived with that growing up. You know, my dad was like, I was like, Dad, why don't you just ever ask for help? He's like, oh, I feel like I don't need it. And then I help him, and he's like, oh, okay, I needed it. So, you know, I think that's just the Native American trait that we all hold, and I very much used to do that. You know, a lot of the time when I was in class, I was like, I don't need help with this. I can do it by myself. And I realized that it wasn't a trait that I wanted to go on so forth with school. So as soon as I was able to reach out and find help, you know, at the Native American Center and being able to find help with, you know, just overall what the school offered was such a huge thing. You know, the Native American tuition, you know, being close to home and having such a great relationship with you know, my other mentors. So that was really a huge thing, taking use of like office hours that the professors had. And a lot of them were very flexible, you know, being able to work with the professors. So it was just the flexibility of the professors, you know, and the Native American Center, and, you know, just overall an environment that was very much a helping environment. So that's really what helped me. That's the resources that I had. And a lot of it was, you know, it was really my roommate, my brother. You know, he speaks fluent Navajo, and a lot of the time in Navajo we say "Adiyotin kise," which means "don't be stupid," and we'll be sitting by each other and we'll be like studying. And he's like "Adiyotin kise," I'll be like "Nah, nisha," or I'll be like "Neh," which means you in Navajo, and he'd be like "Nene," which means like "stop it." And so we'd laugh about that, and that was kind of our slogan through, I guess you could say, which was school, and it was like "Don't be stupid," you know, just work through it. Because, growing up with our grandparents, they only tell you once, and you better pick it up that first time, because if not, you're stuck. So that's what me and him grew up with, and that's why we kind of got the instance of help each other, and we'll both work at it. And it's okay if we have to hear it a couple of times to get it. So yeah, that's really what helped. That's the resources I had, I guess you could say.
Thank you so much, Dorsey. I tried to memorize that sentence. I couldn't. We have to meet up later about that, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds like you had great resources at Port Louis College, right? Yeah. Okay. So Keely, how about you? What resources did you seek out, and was it specific resources for American Indian and Alaska Native students?
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned this numerous times already, but I think mentor-mentee relationships are so important. And I was really lucky to have one form very organically when I was in high school. And then just the more I got comfortable with that, I realized how easy it was to just send an email or walk up to someone and ask, hey, what do you do? What's your daily life like working in this profession? And how like taking that initiative with someone and just starting a conversation, asking where they're from, what their name is, anything, can really form a long-term relationship that can be so impactful. And so another resource that kind of just came about because I would tell all my friends like, oh, I'm applying right now for school. I would just talk about what I was doing. Some of my friends would be like, oh, well, my sister or my friend is also doing that or has graduated. And so getting connected with people who have already done it was a huge resource for me because I had people giving me advice on my applications or my personal statements and things like that was so helpful. Not having anyone in my family ever had like gone through the process before and couldn't really give me advice. And so that was invaluable. And when I was really young, I was part of the Iowa First Nations program at the University of Iowa. I think I was in middle school or like the first part of high school. I think it might have been middle school, I'm not sure. But students can go to the University of Iowa for a summer program and just learn all about the resources and tour the campus and just really get comfortable on campus and meet other peers who might be interested in applying to the University of Iowa. So just having a Native community there and getting to meet some of the people that are there to support the community. And then while I was at the University of Iowa, the Native American Student Association, that was really great to be able to see how it has changed over the years since my mom was there. And now the people that are carrying it on after I've left as well. And then finally, I was also part of a law bridge program with the Iowa Law School. And so that was really great. That was kind of my first exposure in a law school and getting to see presentations and actually talk to lawyers that are working and see what kind of knowledge they have and like are teaching us, just over a short weekend was a great little peek into the field. And then like nowadays I go to talks at the school. So like most universities or colleges all have events all the time and it's almost overwhelming how many there are, but just picking maybe one a week is really nice to be able to learn about even a topic that maybe isn't relevant to what you're studying. But I think that just getting different information about other fields can also be beneficial to real world application of all the things that we're getting to learn about.
Good, thank you so much. Yes, reach out, talk to people. Don't be afraid to ask. I was also the first, well, I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't have parents that could ask about how to do things. So yeah. People are normally friendly and willing to help if you just reach out a hand. So, and Liz is posting in the chat here, sending an email can be your greatest advantage. Yes, Liz. Thank you all for that. And then we have Hoshona. What resources did you seek out and what resources were available for American Indian and Alaska Native students?
So at the University of Oklahoma, they provide a lot of different resources to students. Specifically for me, for STEM, I like to take advantage of their office hours. They have where students are kind of helping students with computer science homework and stuff. That's something that I've really taken advantage of this semester. And for like specifically for like Native Americans, I wandered in one of the first days I got on campus. I wandered into the Native American lounge here, which is called the Five Moons Lounge, which is a space dedicated just for like us natives to like just hang out, study, like chill. It's kind of like a resting place. I use it a lot for a lot of studying hours, but they also hold a lot of different events here um, that are held by like different Native organizations such as the Native Sorority and Native Frat, along with ASA, which is the American Indian Student Association here. So I think those are like kind of the main resources here at OU that I've utilized. I know that also along with like my academic advising and like mental health resources and wellness, I think those are probably like the biggest ones that I've taken advantage of. I guess along with like what the university offers to students, like the gym, I like to work out. And so it's kind of my mental health like escape during like stressful weeks and stuff. I like to go in the mornings and just take a break, maybe like do a quick workout sesh and get my mind off of my homework for a little bit. I think those are some that I've definitely taken advantage of. I know there's a lot more that I haven't mentioned, but those are just some of the key ones.
That's great. I'm so glad to hear that it's some great resources out there at the colleges you guys have chosen. So let's hear Liz's next question.
I think you all brought up some great points of balancing the mental health with like physical health and also doing homework at the same time. So thank you all for sharing that. And so the next question is what can universities do to attract and further support AI and AN students? And this is going to go to Dorsey first.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the time, I think it's, seeing a familiar face, I guess you could say. A lot of the time when Native Americans do go to school, there's always that big, I keep bringing it up, is culture shock, you know what I mean? A lot of the time you go to these universities and you don't see anybody that's like yourself. So you feel in a sense, threatened, you feel in a sense that you don't belong there. So I guess being able to, just show that representation, you know what I mean? I know a lot of schools nowadays are offering Native American centers and they're offering, Native American incentives, being able to, bring culture back, land acknowledgements. I know at Fort Lewis, they did a land acknowledgement and they did like an apology statement and they did this on how the school was founded. And that was really a cool thing for me, and that really just brought to the forefront, all schools, how have they impacted the land, or what were the traditional homelands there before of, you know what I mean? So being able to see that was such a huge thing for me. And, I really enjoyed it because like I said, the reason why I got hooked was because I forgot what his name was. He was Navajo. I think he was my dad clan wise. And he kind of just came up to me and he's like, hey, what's up? What's your name? Where you from? Where you going? What are you majoring in? And and it was such a cool thing. And, all my peers that were behind me were like, Dorsey, you know that guy? I was like, no, I met him just now. And so being able to see a familiar face and being able to, know that there's representation, there's people like you there, and being able to, further offer more, more incentives and being able to offer more, resources for Native American students would be a huge thing I think that universities could do. And, just having, like I said, just pushing that diversity and culture in classroom, you know what I mean? A lot of the time, the practices that we study are just either ancient studies or they're just something we're refabbing on. So being able to do that, and from classroom to recruiting all the way up to, being able to have that representation, I know at U of U, they have, their halftime show where they bring in the Uena and Ore tribe up from northern Utah, and being able to see that, that is such a cool thing. That means, that we're pushing past the stigma of, Native Americans are just, people who live on the reservations, pushing those boundaries, pushing those, those things that they label us as, and being able to, say that we can do it. A lot of the time, maybe all we need is that encouragement, being able to say it's okay, you can go away from home. We want this to be your new home. Or, there's people, not in a sense saying there's people like you here, but there's a family there for you at school. And that's really what pushed me, and what I feel that, all schools can expand on, is diversity and culture in the classroom, and being able to have representation of Native Americans and whatever it may be. So that's what I feel like they can brush up on, and just more resources. A lot of the time, I always hear the stigma of, oh, you're Native American, you go to school for free, huh? And it's like, no, we still got to apply for scholarships. We still got to, push ourselves in the classroom to be able to have these same, how would you say it? Same opportunities as others. Because a lot of the time we're leaving families, we're leaving, responsibilities back at home. So being able to, know that your family's going to be okay, but know that you're taking care of yourself in that essence too. So yeah, that's what I feel like they can brush up on in my thoughts, or in my terms, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dorsey. All right. Keely, what can universities do to attract and further support AI and AN students?
Yeah, I think first and foremost would be scholarships. I mean, you have to pay to get in the door, and I think that is a big inhibitor for a lot of people. I know without some of the scholarships I've gotten, I wouldn't have been able to even go. And just having to worry about that really takes away from someone's studies, being able to wonder, like, can I afford over $700 worth of books this semester or not? It's just ridiculous, the prices of education today in higher education, and I understand it, but it's not attainable for everyone. So I think that's the first thing. But also, when a student is choosing a school, having a Native student population there, but also faculty, is so important, because, whether or not you have peers there, what you're being taught, if it is offensive or if it's not true, and, on a big campus, especially if there's no one else in the classroom with you and no one else there to really say anything, I think a lot of times I felt this way, or other Native students feel like they have an obligation to speak up, and it's not really fair. So I think it's important for there to be representation also among professors and faculty, and for universities to take real action when something like that happens, when a student is made, when there's a disagreement in the classroom, and a student feels like they're not welcome there. And so I also think that when it comes to schools that have lower populations of Native students, that oftentimes a big burden falls on students to be representatives of Native clubs, or, people of color are often put on the front of a brochure, but then there's always a lack of resources when it comes to the day-to-day lives of the students. So I think being more than the front of a pamphlet is so important, that universities pay attention to that and actually be taking steps to support and grow the community on campus. And yeah, I think that's what came to mind initially for me.
Absolutely, Keely, making the space for everyone in the room and not just expecting the students to make that space for themselves. It's a lot to ask of a student and anybody. Thank you so much. All right, we are moving on to Hoshona. What can universities do to attract and further support students?
So along with what the others have said, I also think that representation is like a huge like deal within, like, especially like big universities, in order to like show that there is like a Native community there, along with like accessibility to like information of like resources and opportunities, just creating a very like knowledgeable like space that allows like students to like be able to know of like resources and like different scholarships and grants, maybe like fellowships or like internships throughout the school year. I think that's very important that universities like develop this sort of I want to say working machine to like able to like give us the accessibility that we need along with like the representation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, Isabella, what can universities do to attract and further support AI and AN students?
Just like everyone said, is like kind of like showing that they have a Native community there. Because if you don't really see that on the front side, it's gonna push people away from going to that school. Because people want to feel like at home at college. I mean, it's not really your home, but like it's kind of your home. You're there for 4 years, so you kind of want to feel that sense of home and family. So I think that's really important. And for me, what I thought is having like maybe like a tour or like orientation day specifically for Indigenous students and their families, so they get a different look at the campus without like everyone else there or like a bunch of other families there. Because that's another way people can make friends within that little community that they have if they choose to go to that school. Because I got that opportunity and it was really good for me. And I would say also more funding for like the organizations for like Native students, like NSA, and more opportunities like scholarships for students that will really help them decide on which school they're going to go to. Because like everyone said, it's so not college is not always feasible for everyone, or not really. Yeah, it's really expensive. So that's a really big thing. And more resources. We always need more resources. Because especially for me, going to a predominantly non-Indigenous and non-colored university, we get kind of like the backside of things sometimes. Even though we do have some resources, we could always use more. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think you all have brought up important points that need to be touched on and should be listened to. And with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Monica for the last question.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. You guys all have so much great input for us. And the last question is, what advice would you give to other American Indian and Alaska Native students to further support their own education and success at university? And the question goes to Keely first.
The first thing I would say is mindset is everything. You're not going to be able to do it if you don't think you can. I have so many days to even now, like after graduating university, where I'm like, oh, I can't do it anymore. And like those moments pass, and just being very optimistic and positive, like, oh, I can't do it right now, but in 20 minutes, I'm going to feel great after this workout, or after a good meal, or after I relax and take a nap or something. And just being so positive, and making that a habit really, really changes the game, I think. And I mean, I've heard from different lectures and resources that just having that confidence through practice can help you do better on an exam. Or, I think it helps me when I'm really focused in my reading, or in just having a positive attitude, instead of like, oh my gosh, I have to do my homework and then it takes twice as long. So I think that's really important, but also don't sweat the small stuff. If there's like a bad test or even a bad semester, you get all bad grades, like that's okay. When you graduate, like your employer or wherever you go or whatever you do, they're not going to ask what your grade was. They might, but it doesn't matter as much as sometimes it feels like it does in the semester. And like the real important part is what you learn from it, and the connections you make, the lifelong friendships you make, the things that you're actually doing day to day. And like one of the biggest things for me now is having a hobby outside of school. Like I've been hiking, just different activities that like, even if I do bad in a class, like that's not the end of the world because I'm still good at all these other things that aren't like related to school. And so I think that's like some of the things that have carried me through undergrad and are continuing to carry me through this semester.
Thank you, Keely. I do remember from my own days in college how extremely important every single sentence seemed in a paper I was turning in. Later on, I was in the position that I was grading papers for students. And when I realized how quickly professors and lecturers would read through those, it made me realize that they are not really focused on every single sentence. If a few mishaps here and there, it doesn't really matter. They're just looking at the big picture. So I think, Keely, you're saying don't focus on the small stuff, just keep plugging along and focus on the big picture and everything will be fine. Thank you for that. Okay, so Hoshona, what advice would you give to other American Indian and Alaska Native students to further support their own education and their own success at university and colleges?
So for me, I feel like a mantra that I've kind of always, like I've been saying lately, is take it a day by day. Definitely do not fret about the future, or like, even though it's important, but like kind of focus on the present. What can you do in order to like be successful in your own time, own right? Like maybe if it is like just a little step, maybe read like 2 pages or so. Not too much, but you can just do a little thing. Little stuff always builds up over time. And I found that very helpful to like remember during like big assignments. Maybe I'll do a couple lines of code and then maybe I'll do another lines of code like 20 minutes later, and then eventually I'll finish like my project. So I feel like definitely take it day by day. Always remember that where you come from, your community. I always fall back on like beading in my free time and like journaling. I love to journal. It's always important to find like your own, like what makes you happy outside of school. I agree with Keely, like you should like find a hobby, find something that you feel like calms you. It like makes like it distracts you from like your academic life, your like work, or like whatever's going on. I feel like that's important too. So I feel like maybe just like have a strong community, like be like, don't fret about like big problems in the future, like just take it day by day and like little stuff builds up. And so I feel like that's like the advice that I've come to like learn and that I've come to like really appreciate. It's like,
thank you, Hoshona. That's great suggestions and advice for other students. Isabella, how about you? What advice would you give to American Indian and Alaska Native students to support their education and success at university?
For me, I would say really focus on your studies. Try not to stress yourself so much, but focus on your studies. Try to do the best you can on every assignment. And like build your resume. What that means is like joining clubs, organizations, going to sports events, maybe even managing like a sports team, if that's possible for you. But always try to give yourself some space. Like if you get too busy, don't overwork yourself, because college is already hard. So you don't want to make things harder on yourself. Take advantage of opportunities given. That could be like upcoming scholarships or like maybe even like internships and stuff like that. Finding a good group of friends and a solid support system. Those could be the same, those could be different. Your support system could be more like your teachers and your family, and your friends can be your friends. But I think finding a good group of friends and support system is really important. And I'd also say do mental health checks and self-care days, because that can get away from you sometimes because you're so focused on school. So mental health is really important. And then also finding something to release your stress or get your mind off like school. Like that could be like going to the gym, working out, like taking walks. Just find something that can get your mind off school for a little bit. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Isabella, are you coaching aspiring gymnasts?
I was after high school. I was in high school too. But right now I'm actually a manager for the University of Denver gymnastics team. But I hope to maybe next quarter or even in the spring quarter find a good gym to coach at.
It's very impressive. Thank you. So Dorsey, how about you? What kind of advice would you like to provide for other American Indian and Alaska Native students to be successful at the
Yeah. Sorry. There's really a lot of things I can go over, you know. I think one of the biggest things for me was, you know, finding good breaks and good times, you know, take a break from whatever work you're doing. Because a lot of the time, you know, you go to school and you're in that mindset of, you know, I got to get this done. I got to ace these tests. I got to get all this done in this certain time span. I got projects coming up. I got presentations I got to do. And, you know, a lot of the time, if we get conjungled up in that. And a lot of time, you know, we just need a breather, you know. And the way I find my breathers is, you know, either having drum tie or, you know, even taking my mind off of that and learning something else. You know, I am Navajo, so the Nepazad, which is Navajo language, I'm still a learner of my own language. So being able to take my mind off of something and learn something else usually is always a good mindset to take me back into what I want to do again. It always gives me that reaffirmation of being able to say, this is why I'm still in school and this is why I still want to go forth and keep going with it. You know what I mean? So a lot of the time is being able to, you know, find my culture, but being able to learn my culture and then being able to apply that to my school, you know. And a lot of time is like having a good, I guess, study group, having a good cohort of people that are like-minded. You know, a lot of the time, if you have people who are like-minded, it's so much easier to get stuff done. You know, you sit there and you guys reminisce and you guys, you know, talk about what you want to get done and how you want to apply it to life after school. Because a lot of the time, you know, I sit with a lot of my I call them my brothers, and we'll sit there, you know, we'll do homework and whatever it may be, and we'll be like, hey, you remember that song we wrote one time? Remember that song that you sung? Well, that was a pretty solid song, and we'll just reminisce, and pretty soon our whole like maybe three you know three paper worksheet is done, and we were like, oh, we finished it. We were just talking about, you know, this, and all of a sudden we got our work done. So being able to, you know, find a good cohort of people, still be involved in your culture, and being able to, you know, how would you say it? Just overall be organized and stay in tune with, you know. I always found my relief was taking my mind off of it for a bit. So I would always, you know, I was a big fan in high school of what was it called? It was a Native American newsletter, and I always turned my focus on that, and I always read it. And a lot of the time, you know, these Native American leaders, you know, they got the titles, you know, whether it be a lawyer, whether it be, you know, them being a lawyer, whether them being a doctor, whether them being an activist who still has, you know, BA or even a master's or whatever it may be. You know, all of these people have titles, and that really encouraged me to, you know, stay and stick with it. So always, you know, knowing the reason why you're going to school is what helped me, and I believe it can help others, because a lot of the time, you know, we think we're doing the work, and then we get lost in the work and we forget the reason why we're doing it. So being able to know why we're doing it and being able to push ourselves further and beyond that is what I think can help others. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Dorsey. I think, Teresa, are you on? I think we are going to open it up to the group, see if we have any questions.
Yes, so I first wanted to bring it to the audience and see if they wanted to had any questions. So I'm going to give them a few minutes to ask our panelists questions, if that's okay with you guys. And I'm also curious to know if there are any university officials on here today. Any questions from the audience? So our goal was to really bring light to universities and colleges, because we are seeing the dropout rates for Native youth once they attend college. And I think you guys have done a wonderful job of bringing out what needs to happen. I do have a question. I know that when I was at the university, I was required to take courses related to American Indian and Alaska Natives, one for my own community and then one for Native Americans in large, about our histories. Are any of you required to take Native American courses? Or are they even offered as electives at your universities? Would anybody like to answer that? Dorsey?
Yeah, I can go first. They offer them at Fort Lewis College, but a lot of the time, you know, those classes fill up very, very quickly. That's kind of the thing, the crossroad that I'm coming at Fort Lewis College is, you know, I want to take these Native American classes, but a lot of the time there's a lot of Native Americans and they fill those so easily. So my history credit has to be like, you know, Anglo-Saxon history or European history. You know, just like I kind of wanted to take Native American history, but you know, they offer it, but it's just, you know, they fill up so quick, and you know, that's the only thing I get bummed out about. So I have to wait, and sometimes I even have to, you know, take the classes I don't want to take, but it's still, you know, expanding my mind. I'm still learning something new. So that's where I have to push myself to, I guess, do that. So yeah.
My hope is that it's one day a requirement. I know that when I was attending school, it was a requirement that we not only had a class on our local history, but we actually had a class on our United States history of American Indian Alaska Natives. I do think it should be a requirement for universities. So for everybody. Anybody else want to answer that question?
Yeah, so at both the schools I've gone to, there's electives, but it's not required. There have been some instances where I've taken classes that are unrelated. Like one time I took a linguistics class and topics have been brought up, and I found that to be interesting. But it wasn't like in depth or anything. I just thought it was nice that some professors do go out of their way to try to incorporate things into the classes. And sometimes it turns out really good and sometimes it turns out not so good. So it's really just dependent on who the professor is.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
also the other students in the room.
Totally agreed. We do have a couple of things in the chat. Tasha said, what are some reasons or situations that have led to your Indigenous peers to leave college? Would anybody like to answer that?
I can answer that one. I do have a friend. She went to DU with me. She was in like the community and everything, and she had some personal issues at home. There's always personal issues coming up. This is just for anyone. Like it could either be personal issues, like they have some like family members they need to take care of at home. And sometimes it could be like financial issues, or it could be like just they're not ready yet. They're not ready yet. So I think those are a lot of situations that can lead to people leaving the school, and also not feeling supported as well. That's a big one, because if we don't feel supported, we don't want to be there. It's really hard to stay somewhere where you don't feel like you belong. So
sorry, my dog's barking. Agreed with that. Anybody else want to answer?
Yeah, so they missed home. Really, that's all it was. They really missed home. You know, a lot of my friends that were there, you know, they talked about, you know, I miss grandma's cooking. They grew up with their grandparents, and it was like, man, I miss grandma's fire bread, you know, I miss grandma's stew. And you know, that kind of made me just feel the same way too, but I lived an hour away. So it was just really a reality of, like like what I said in one of the previous questions, was leaving they felt like they left the responsibility that they were bestowed upon. And really the other one was, you know, one of them had an instance where we were walking on Main Street, and it was you know, it was a racial instance where we were walking and they were staring at us, and one of the bystanders was just like, oh man, there's still Native Americans around. And he just kind of And my friend turns to the side, gives him a full education on it. And he's like, I'm just going to tell you in a nice way. And then he walked away and he's like, Dorsey, I don't think I'm going to stay after this. He's like, I just didn't like that feeling. And I didn't like how that went. So sometimes it may be that. And, a lot of the time they just don't feel supported. And that was really the biggest thing. And that's what we really tried to push with him. And luckily he stayed, but he was on the verge of, after that situation, he just wasn't feeling it. So being able to, be a support system and, a home away from home, I guess you could say.
I agree with that, Dorsey, and I think you brought a great point up. I think we are community people, and then when we go away from home and we're not getting that support and we're not getting that sense of community, that's when we fall off. I do know personally of several people who have dropped out because of racial issues too, that were handled appropriately by the institution. I think those are very huge factors. I do think there are things that the university could do to help with that, because you can find your own support system within the educational system, in the higher educational system, and in the colleges. You could find people that we feel comfortable with number one. And I think you guys already brought up a lot of things that they could do that you're doing and being. Am I muted the whole time?
No,
No, just for a moment.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure how much you just heard of that. I had another question and then I got muted, so now I'm kind of forward. And yes, my next question is, are all of your advisors, are they Native American as well? Keely saying yes. Dorsey? No? Isabella? Jonah saying, okay. All right, cool. But you feel supported by your advisors? Yes, okay.
Teresa, you're muted again.
I don't know why you guys are muting me. Does anybody else have questions for our panelists here today?
Hi, my name is Martina Georges. I'm a circle keeper. I would like to thank you guys for validating the feelings that you guys go through when you leave home. I actually go over to one of our community colleges over here where a lot of the rural areas, the students are from rural areas. And a few years ago, I actually contacted them, and they were having issues because a lot of the kids were homesick. And so we are with one of the school coordinators. We're trying to do circles on Wednesdays, and I want to thank you for all of the information that you gave me about not being at home, not being disconnected, not bonding with anything, and you have to find ways to bond. And this actually helps me to acknowledge how they feel, and so I appreciate every information that you've given me. So thank you.
Yes. And thank you. And I think it's also important to note that because of that, we need support from our parents and our family members and our community members. So absolutely. Thank you for that. Are any of you guys in sports as well at the universities? Nobody? I say that because when you're part of a sport, basketball, football, you have that sense of belonging, that sense of unity, that sense of friendship, that sense of, being part of something bigger than yourself. And that's kind of the way I look at this. And that's kind of the way I'm wanting this to go, that our Native peoples, in order to be successful, we need that same mindset. Does that make sense? In order for us to go to college and be successful through the first year and beyond. So that's what I would like to see. And I would like to see universities make a better effort, not just in recruiting. They're doing very well in recruiting Native students. They're just not doing a lot of what they need to do to retain them and to make them successful. And that's what I would like to see. So that's why we were having this session today. Any other questions, any other comments from anybody on the panelist?
So
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dorsey.
No, Teresa, you're talking about basketball. We play basketball all the time. It's not really organized, but we just throw court games, and we the way we play it, we call it res ball, and that's a term that's used all over Native America. And we're like, hey, you down for some res ball this evening? And we play, and when we play with other how would you say ethnicities, non-indigenous people, a lot of the time they're like, hey, that's a hard foul, and then I got brothers up there from Lakota nations that are like 7 foot tall, and they're like, hey, no blood, no foul, bro. And then they're like looking at me and they're like, Dorsey, you're just a little short guy. And it's that sense of belonging, even though they're from South Dakota, and I have bros that are from Oklahoma coming up, and I have bros that are from California, even though we're not all the same, culture, we all find a sense and love in res ball. And we never put anyone down. Native American, when we joke, sometimes we can joke a little too hard. I'll say that, but when we joke, it's all fun and games, and everybody finds the joy in it, and everybody has a sense of belonging. Like you can meet someone new playing ball, and hey, that's a sharpshooter right there. Hey, that guy can post up really good. So that's where I found, a sense of belonging to was res ball. I played pickup games, and I kind of stood on the side court, and they're like, hey, you want to play? And I was like, yeah. So I just jumped in. So
you brought up a good point, Dorsey. See, what I'm hearing you say is that you don't necessarily have to be with your Native brothers and sisters to feel that connection. It could be other people as well. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah. Anybody else want to comment? I think somebody in the audience was going to say something as well. And got cut off.
Hi, this is Marcy. I'm from the Hopi tribe, and I just want to encourage you all to continue with your education. It's very inspiring to hear of all your experiences. We here at the Hopi tribe, we offer funding for students who are seeking degrees like yourselves. And then we also have a vocational program, and I work for the vocational program. So we assist people that are, just want to learn a trade and go to school. And, that works for some people. Not everybody wants to pursue a long-term degree.
Yes.
But, one thing I heard from all of you is that there is such great family support. And that's really what it takes to be where you're at today. So, I have to admire your families for really giving you that support. Without them, you wouldn't be here where you're at today. So that's really good. And then the other thing that I picked up was that you all have some really great role models, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, that is just awesome to have that in your families. With the students I work with, they're ready, they might be right out of high school, or they sat out of high school for a few years, and they finally, decided I need to do something. So, with vocational, I have a lot of students that succeed and go on, and they get jobs, and that works for them. There's some that come home and they can't use their skills, because that's not here at home. So part of the advising that we do is, where do you want to be in the long run? Do you want to come home and do that kind of work? You have to look at what's here at home. If you want to be say an auto mechanic, there's not a lot of shops, just what do they call them, the backyard mechanics. So we have to talk about their options too, as far as their long-term career. So thank you to all of you. I really enjoyed the session, and I'm thinking to maybe hold a similar session with our students of Hopi graduates. I think that would be good for our students too. So thank you. You really have you gave me a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, I love what you said. And I also think it's very important to acknowledge something you said. A lot of people do want to go to college and universities so that they can gain the knowledge to go back home to their native communities and work for their native communities. And I think when they do that, we need to learn to support them. We really need to learn to support that. And I think that native communities can do a little bit better in that area to make sure that we are supporting our native peoples that are getting an education. Because you have to
Absolutely. Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else have questions?
I have a comment. I'm Vashti Langford. I work for the Cowlitz Indian Tribe in Longview, Washington, and I love the panel. I work with youth, 9 to 17-year-old, and we are a very urban setting. No res, a lot of disconnectedness with the youth I work with. I work with native and non-native. So it's really encouraging, and I heard everything you guys said, and I'm excited to kind of help translate that for the youth I work with, because we struggle sometimes to see the future. And I had I've worked here for 7 years, and one of my girls from very first year just got she's a mental health therapist now. And I like things like that are very encouraging. And so I appreciate you guys' time and hearing you guys' story very, very, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Hey, Teresa, I got a little comment. I thought that was a really cool thing they brought up. You know, where do you want to be in the long run? That was really such a cool, it was really cool. I like that line because, you know, they they talked about this thing at my school that I was a part of. It was called economy. So building your economy through education, which was having people go to school but come back to help the community. And that's in a non-indigenous setting. And I think that's the thing we need to, I guess you would say, push in Native American communities, which is such a huge thing with me, you know, because I have a saying that I live by, and it's my saying, and it's 1 foot where you're from, 1 foot where you're headed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that essence really just means, you know, bring your culture. You know, you can go places, but, you know, always remember your roots to where you're from. Or if not that, you know, bring your roots to what you're learning. And that's the line that I live by, and that's my personal line. And they use that at the high school now. And really, it's really the instance of, you know, being able to go places but come back, or, you know, bring your education forward and push your culture into it too. So I thought that was a really cool line, and I really like how they put that. So I just wanted to tell you guys about that line, you know, 1 foot where you're from, 1 foot where you're headed, you know, and that can be multiple different things to whoever it resonates with. So that's one thing I thought that was really cool to bring that up.
Totally agree, Dorsey. And I think that maybe we need to do some more work, or maybe another panel discussion on what our native communities can help do to support our native youth coming back from college so that they could come and help our native people. Because it's so important. You're going off, you're getting educated. You should be able to come back and work with our people, because that's who need you the most. And if you're passionate about doing that, I think that the door should be wide open for that. So, yeah, so we'll be hearing more about that, Dorsey. Thank you for that. Thank you for that acknowledgement. Again, I just want to say, this is our future. I'm so excited to know that this is our future. Right here, we have lawyers, we have people just doing wonderful, wonderful things. And I say it every time, but I couldn't say how proud I am of each and every one of you. You are our future leaders. And I thank you so much. Thank you so much. What I'm leaving with today is that you need a sense of belonging to be successful. I think that's first and foremost, community and a sense of belonging. And I think if universities can realize that and understanding who we are and taking the time to understand that who we are and where we're coming from, I think that universities will be much more successful.